was apparently the only ones who do it.
Contact bar. Yeah, I know.
Otherwise, all your peripheral is recorded.
5:30 having arrived, please rise, pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everybody. Doug Levitt was kind enough to come in on a day's notice to answer questions about the Deerfield Fair WW2 enactment. Doug, want to go to the...
Could we get you to sit down by that? Sure. That way we can project the back of your head onto television.
You're right.
So if you want, I'll just give you a brief overview of what I know, and then you can ask questions. I'm sure you have questions. So the Fair Board of Directors was approached by a nonprofit organization called the Mechanized Warfare Museum. And they wanted to rent the fairgrounds. Obviously, we rent the fairgrounds to the sheep and wool people, the horse shows. We rent them to the Near-Fest technology people. And this seemed, after we explored it, to be a pretty good fit. It's a very patriotic event. It's historic. It's a nonprofit organization. They're affiliated loosely for this weekend with the Wright Museum in Wolfboro. What they are is a nonprofit organization that's raising money to open a museum. They don't actually have a physical museum yet. That's their goal. What they have is a bunch of members that have artifacts, mechanical artifacts from World War II, as in tanks and half-tracks and jeeps and things like that. And I think a lot of their members are trying to find a place, a permanent home for them, rather than trying to pass them on to daughters and other people that might not be thrilled to inherit a tank. So this group is new to us. This would be the first time we've rented to them. As I think you know, we rent to raise money for the upkeep of the fair and pay things like property taxes. They have run an event before. They had it last year at the Orange, Massachusetts airport, and found to their dismay that the Orange, Massachusetts airport is undersized for what they had. So they were expecting, a couple of thousand people, and they got 5,000. So they were looking for a bigger site. So I am not involved in the planning of the activities. I am coordinating with their board of directors that is doing the planning and is responsible for the event. We obviously took the time to write a much more comprehensive contract with this group than we do with the sheep and wool growers, because there's a lot more activity that's of a risky nature. So our contract is much more extensive with them, and as you would expect, the insurance and indemnification clauses are pretty extensive. I've been a little apprehensive about how the weekend's going to go, because the one thing that this group seems to be very good at is promoting it, and they've done things like sponsored segments on NPR. They have an ad in the inside of the front cover of the Red Sox program that you get at Fenway Park, things like that. But I'm feeling better about it just based on what I know that they're doing. The final plan, they're coming back to the board of directors of the Deerfield Fair on June 7th to sort of present a progress report and let us know where they are. But they have, to this point, produced a draft safety document, which is 18 pages long. They have hired flaggers to work the traffic. They are working with our fair parking people. They're in the negotiation stage with them because they were a little shocked at how much it costs to park cars for 2 days. But I'm pretty sure that that's going to happen. They've contracted with our porta potty company. I believe they've made a contractual arrangement with an ambulance company. They've rented misters, and they're also planning on contacting the abutters, sending them a nice letter, which I haven't seen yet, but we've talked about it, explaining what the weekend is going to look like and offering them free tickets. What I expect is that there will be fireworks type noise from 2 to 3 every day. They are World War II reenactors, so they have reenactors that play Allied soldiers, they have reenactors that play German soldiers, they do demonstrations and displays and things like that, but every day at 2 o'clock they have a battle. And the battle involves tanks firing blanks and soldiers firing blanks, and when the tanks get hit, it's sort of the equivalent of a small fireworks display. So they're simulated destruction of mechanized materials. They are also planning on offering helicopter rides, which would be centered right in the middle of the fair. And obviously, the main concern that I have as a resident of Deerfield, rather than a person associated with the fair, is that traffic could be quite heavy. It's really hard to say what we know with the fair that we get, a rush in the morning and a rush in the afternoon and a rush in the evening. But with these guys, I would think that it would be sort of a steady flow in the morning and then some sort of exodus after the battle. But it's all early enough so that hopefully it won't, they won't have a problem like we do with people that can't find their cars in the dark and so on and so forth. The only other thing that I'll mention is that they did utilize our vendor contracts with their vendors. So they are planning on having food vendors, and they're using the language in their contracts that we use in ours, which clearly states the vendors have the responsibility to get all appropriate licenses, insurance, meet all state of New Hampshire food safety guidelines, and pay all appropriate taxes to the state. Now, that sort of puts the onus on the vendors and not them, but at least we know that they're thinking about those things. So that's really all I have to share with you. What else would you like to know that I might be able to tell you? I'm also perfectly willing to get David Kerr, the president of the Mechanized Warfare Museum, in here to talk to you if you'd like to do that.
Andy?
Yeah, I think, and I don't know about the rest of the board, but a couple of concerns, maybe 3 concerns that stood out to me were, first of all, the numbers. I know in the documents you have there, I think they're estimating they're hoping for 16 to 20,000 people for the weekend, and they indicate that they were going to cut off ticket sales at 16,000 per day if necessary, I guess based on parking size. I think when I looked at that, I'm certainly not active in fair parking, that sort of thing, but some of their other estimates that they would have 2 uniformed police officers on premise and that they would have 5 flaggers. And some of those things struck me as a little bit light if they get the number of people they wanted. I think as a selectman, the primary concern is the noise level, and I'm much relieved to hear you say that there's a battle from 2 to 3 o'clock, because that was information that I don't think any of us were able to find, and we weren't sure if this was going to be a 10 to 5 or a into the evening type thing. And when we've had fireworks events at the fair that weren't just 4th of July or Old Home Day, I know we've certainly gotten phone calls and complaints from far and wide about the noise.
Sure. So that was a draft plan that you saw, and we did suggest to them that they would light on police officers as well. We also suggested some things around making the first aid area more visible and so on and so forth, and reminded them that they'll need a clear and distinct cooler policy, no coolers allowed. So they're going back and look at that, but their response was, well, that's not counting the private security people we're going to hire. So
Okay.
they did, they are concerned about their money as well, because they're trying to sell as many tickets in advance, and we encourage them that if they reached a theoretical level where the parking lot was to be full, they need to call off ticket sales and say that the event is sold out and that they'll not be taking any, gate receipts or something, and because we don't want people parking on the road or anything, so they can't. They need to make that really clear ahead of time if they have the attendance that they're hoping for, and it's going to be weather dependent, obviously.
Right.
I mean, if it's a day like today, it'll probably be very, very well attended. It's kind of unique. No, I was going to say something else. I can't remember what it was.
Fred?
Yeah, I share Andy's concern with regard to security. Let's see, I think probably it would be a good idea for Chief Duquette to be able to review their plan, to have his input into the operation as well. And again, with regard to police for traffic, I think we probably should have police out there in addition to the flaggers as well. Obviously not as many as the flaggers, but nonetheless to make sure people are doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, they're supposed to be taking the final version, which I have not seen yet, and sharing that with the police and fire department of Deerfield. If the Deerfield police are visible out there, I think that would be good. I think I get the impression, and we don't know because this will be a first for all of us, but I get the impression that they think having 300 or 400 uniformed people with M1 carbines in their hands provides a level of crowd control that would suggest they don't need as many police as we would think, but we'll just have to see.
Blanks though, so.
Oh, they're blanks, so, yeah,
Jeff, did you
but
have any?
still.
Yeah. Are they planning to use one entrance or more than one entrance to the parking?
So I think now we're talking about 3 entrances, the main entrance, the entrance up on the hill, and then the Cotton Road entrance, not the entrance by the horse pulling, because that sight lines there are so badly, and if you know the section of ground out from the new sheep and goat barn, that's sort of their battlefield. So they're going to block off a huge section of the parking lot and use that as the encampment and the parking for their tanks and vehicles, and later on their simulated battle. Inside will be basically the sheep and goat barn and the arts and crafts building and displays in the area in front of the museum. But the soldiers that are camping will be outside the gate, as will be the battlefield. So they initially proposed they were going to bring everyone through one gate, and we convinced them that the line of traffic that it would cause would be back to Timbuktu. So that now they're more looking at bringing people in, parking, having them get out and go through a gate-like structure that will allow them to then visit the encampment, see the vehicles, and then go into the fairground proper to see the buildings and the displays in there. They'll also have they're going to have like a USO entertainment type activity in the sheep and goat barn that will pretty much run a great deal of time as well. So there'll be some entertainment. They know the fair's no alcohol policy. They know the no drugs policy, and we're telling them not to allow coolers inside, so they don't have to deal with the problems that might encompass. So they've been pretty good every time that we've said they ought to do this. They perk right up and take the advice to heart. But it's important to realize that this is their event, not my event or our event.
I think if I
Go ahead,
could.
Andy.
Yeah, I think it's important to realize that it's not our event, and we're likely to be first and foremost to hear about it if the traffic is from here to Candia or if there are explosions all night. So that's why we're concerned.
So I feel fairly confident that things are going to be controlled and safe inside the fairgrounds, and that the battle will be reasonably brief and safe, and it won't go all night or anything like that. Traffic, maybe you want to pray for rain.
No, it'll be all right.
I think
Go ahead, Fred.
Based on the estimate of potentially 16,000 people there, has the association looked at the parking requirements to accommodate 16,000 and make sure that what they're projecting as areas proposed for parking are going to be sufficient?
Well, so that's an estimate. We know that on that side of the road, we can park about 21,000 cars.
Oh,
So,
it should be.
well, yeah, except they're using
They're using
part of the
check.
parking lot as their encampment, and they're
Okay.
using part of the parking lot as their battleground, and they're using part of the parking lot, well, they're not using it, but you won't be able to access it for cars because they're gonna block off that whole area, so the area down by the real campground and the horse pulling and all that area won't be available for parking. So the 16,000 is sort of a guess as to what will be available in the rest of the available parking lot and how many people will be in a car. I think it's probably as good a guess as any.
Should be fine.
Would, does the association own the land over on the Treem side of the 43?
That one parking lot,
Yeah.
yeah, next to Treem's cornfield,
Would they be using that too?
there are no plans to use that.
Overflow.
Yeah.
That could change. I mean, it's conceivable there could be volunteers or workers over there,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not a flow of people. You know, crossing the road is something they don't want to do. We don't want to open that gate. We're kind of hoping the crowds stay away from the rest of the fairgrounds as much as possible. I mean, there's not going to be anything to draw them up there.
Yeah.
But, so we haven't offered that to them, and they haven't said anything about it, and if they want it, would probably put a really high price on it so they'd be discouraged.
You have something else, Andy?
The only other thing that was running through my mind was the camping. And, I know that they intend to have 2 encampments for each party. I didn't know if there was other camping involved. And the only reason I was asking is there were no specific cutoff hours for the event. I know on their poster, their Facebook webpage and such, it says that it opens Saturday morning and it closes Sunday night. So I didn't know if there was other.
Yeah, well, and that's a good point. I mean, there is, in our camping area, they are planning on having some of the volunteers, if you will, camp there. Because they do have support people that are not just reenactors. The reenactors are gonna be sleeping in pup tents in the parking lot. And they claim that, as long as it's no tougher than a battleground in World War II, they're up for it. So they, it doesn't seem to scare them that in July, that could be a really hot and dusty place. But they have asked for permission to do campfires in that area, and we told them that we would allow that if they can get permits from the fire department. So I'm sure they'll be talking to the chief about that.
You plan on coming in, Doug, on the 14th after you have the final thing on the 7th? We meet again on the 14th,
Sure, I'd be happy to.
just to
Sure.
see how you finalized it. That'd be great.
Sure.
Everybody else all set for now?
Be happy to share what we know. I mean, it's,
Right.
they are hoping that this would be an annual event for them, that they can really use this as a home. So they want things to go really well the first year. They don't want chaos. They don't, they're hoping for a nice, safe, measured event that they can build on the following year. And so are we, because it's, I think it could be a fun event for everybody.
Thanks, Doug.
Okay, we'll see.
Great update.
Be happy to come in on the 14th. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
If something changes, Doug, sooner, let us know. If we have to, we can have another meeting.
Yeah, I mean,
Right now, that sounds good.
yeah, I'm hoping that things will tighten up and we'll be able to be more specific.
Okay. Travis, are you ready? I don't want to hold you up if you'd like to.
Thank you.
First, I want to thank the board for letting me speak tonight. I know it's kind of last minute, but I've been talking, Travis McCoy, VZ Park Commission. And talking back and forth with John Harrington regarding liability issues for volunteers down at the park. I gave John a couple of pieces of information that I wanted to pass on. You guys also have some more if I can.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Travis.
As last minute as it is, I do appreciate starting this process because VZ Park really doesn't have much in the way of bylaws or duties outlined to the commissioners. So that is something that we've talked about over the years, but have never really put anything in writing. If I may, I just prepared a little something I'd like to read. I've been a member of VZ Park Commission since 2009, and I've recently been sworn in for my 4th term. I've been involved with the VZ Park for well over 20 years, having participated in volunteer work there under the supervision of previous commissioners, including my mother, Paula McCoy. The commission has always used volunteers in the cleanup and betterment of the park, and has been successful in facilitating donations in the forms of material goods and specialized labor offered by Deerfield residents. In my time on the commission, we've always done our best to observe proper safety precautions and have provided proof of insurance for any contractors operating tools or machinery on the property. It's come to my attention that a member of the Board of Selectmen has expressed a concern regarding the nature of the physical work conducted by the VZ Park Commissioners and our civilian volunteers. After my presentation to the Board of Selectmen last week, I was informed by the town administrator that, I quote, "the mowing needs to be done by the town mowing contractor, not you or the VP staff," and that this, I quote, "had been decided some time ago." I don't believe I was ever made aware of any such directive from the board, and can say I'm thoroughly confused as we were allowed to opt out of the mowing contract last year to perform such duties on our own, with our own equipment. I was also informed in the same email that with regards to cleaning and clearing, that, I quote, "I would ask you to connect with either the highway department or consult with the contractor to do the work because of liability and the possibility of injuries. I and the commission must contend that an order such as this impedes the progress of our normal operating procedures and will certainly result in much more taxpayer monies being spent to complete the work that has been done by volunteers for at least the last 20 years that I can attest to. And as I have been told, this has been the norm at the park for over 50 years. This is just some of the work, obviously, that we perform. But these are the ones that stick out to me as ones that come with an inherent risk of injury. Mowing, weed whacking, and leaf blowing, clearing brush and down trees using mechanized chainsaws and sawzalls and non-mechanized equipment, such as hand saws and loppers, setting out swim lines and anchors, rafts and anchors, installing 12-volt solar lighting, maintenance of the composting toilets and solid and liquid waste tanks, various construction projects such as building picnic tables, lifeguard chair, information kiosks, and the use of ladders, power tools, and hand tools for said projects. It is my understanding, I talked with John about this today, that as an appointed member of a municipal commission, we are covered by the town of Deerfield's liability and workman's compensation insurance. As such, we're aware that we must practice safe work practices, and when deemed necessary, we must call in licensed and insured contractors. All members of the current VZ Park Commission are willing to sign a waiver indemnifying the town of Deerfield from any liability or personal injury and accepting liability for any property damage resulting from any activities of the commission. If it is the wish of the Board of Selectmen to enact a moratorium on such activities, please specify what activities are prohibited, let it be recorded as such, and allow the commission the opportunity to speak on such an order. In conclusion, I would ask that if any one of the Board of Selectmen does not trust the judgment of its sworn commissioners of VZ Park, that they let it be known now, so that we can move forward with a better understanding of what procedures we must follow to ensure the confidence of those who chose to appoint us. Some of the paperwork that I provided, the first thing in the packet is actually what people see when they pull up our website on the town website. And I just want to point out that one of the most important things that we think that we added into this is the park is managed by the dedicated volunteer members of the VZ Park Commission and encourages citizen involvement and volunteerism in the betterment of our community. In 2016, we also approved the mission statement, the commission approved the mission statement that reads, it is the goal of the VZ Park Commission to meet the needs of a growing community while maintaining the integrity of the park as the family-friendly town beach enjoyed by generations of Deerfield residents. The commission also strives to promote community involvement through volunteerism towards the betterment of the park and the community as a whole. Everything that we've ever written, everything that we've ever done has included volunteers. We've always done our best to make sure that the volunteers have the proper safety equipment and that they're not doing anything that's outside of what someone might do in their own yard. I do understand, we all understand some of the concerns involving heavy equipment, which hasn't been operated down there by any commissioners for quite some time. We understand, inherent dangers of using a chainsaw. We've always we've strived to stack our committee with people who are qualified to do a lot of the work that's required down there, that we feel is required down there. We have an earth scientist who shares a huge interest in going green and water management. Our vice chair is a building contractor and supervisor, and I do whatever it is that I do.
Travis?
Yeah.
Where do you want to go with this?
All right. We want to, number one, I don't feel comfortable as it stands, performing some of the duties such as putting out the raft and the swim lines. There's obvious inherent risk there. Dropping anchors, you can lose a finger. Someone can go overboard tangled in a rope. We don't have lifeguards on duty while we're doing this. We can wear life jackets and take all the safety precautions, but there's still issues there. We also have $1,200 worth of lumber sitting down there, ready to build picnic tables. I'm not sure if I can use a chop saw.
Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, I wasn't exactly aware of the concerns here, Travis. I don't have any particular concerns, and I think the thing that the Board of Selectmen has been concerned about over the years and advised the VZ Park Commission to use the Highway Department or to use contractors was dropping of large trees. It's always been a concern down there, given those big pine trees, and but to my understanding, even as volunteers, you're going to be covered by the workers' compensation coverage of the town. And if you're volunteering, particularly if you're volunteering in the capacity of a commissioner, you're going to be covered by the liability as well. And to your suggestion about signing, by all means, you shouldn't have anybody on the commission sign a waiver for bodily injury. Personal injury, don't be so concerned about. That's slandering or libeling somebody. Bodily injury is getting hurt, but don't sign any waivers as commissioners, excluding yourself from that. But
Sounds to me like it was a major misunderstanding for what started out with a little bit of lawn mowing.
It sounds that way to me too.
Right?
How to
First
put
I've
a lot
heard
of-
about all this.
Well, this came up in 2016.
it did.
And these guys have done an awesome job down there at VZ. But the bathhouse was damaged by a tractor that didn't get properly fixed for years. So back in 2016, we were told we couldn't reuse tractors and that kind of thing down there. But I think what these guys need is maybe a policy that says what they can and cannot use. Mowing, I think you guys should let the town mow that. It takes it off you guys and you can do other
Yeah.
things. And it was already in the bid process. Other than that, I think they need a written policy of what they can and cannot do, or what they're expected to do or cannot do.
Sounds good.
I would absolutely agree with that. That's something that we need to do. I mean, I'd like to concentrate on doing that right now so that we don't run into this next time we have a misunderstanding. But as far as the mowing goes, yes, we would love to be part of the mowing contract. We're happy to do so. There are certain areas of the beach that grow a lot faster than others. I'd like to know that I can go down there with a weed whacker. I'd like to know that I can go down there with a lawnmower. I guess my problem is these things have always been, they've just been done. And we've always assumed that we were covered, that we could operate certain pieces of equipment. And when we have been told that, no, don't drop standing trees, don't operate any heavy equipment, we're more than happy to comply. But, and I don't, I'm not blaming John for the email, I'm not blaming anybody for any misunderstandings or anything like that. It's just, it came up, I get the email, I pass it along to the commission, everybody says, so what do we do,
To my mind, Travis, I think the way you folks handled the paddlecraft trail is what I would envision. When we talked about that, we asked you to use contractors if you needed large trees taken down. You guys did a fine job with a lot of volunteer labor. I believe you had either EMS or Messina come in and do the cutting work that was deemed dangerous and you needed equipment to do, and that worked well. But I'm also curious, did we include VZ Park in our bid specs?
Yes.
The grass, okay.
Yeah. So I guess what I'd like to walk away tonight knowing is, as commissioners, if we go down there with our own boat and we set our lines out, that as long as we're acting responsibly and following safety guidelines, that's not an issue, as well as, like I said, I need to operate a chop saw, and I need to be able to operate a circular saw. Otherwise, the donation that we got for the lumber is canceled out by the money that we have to spend on a contractor to actually put these tables together. And
That'd be a problem.
it may not mean anything, but, I mean, I've been a woodworker since I was 18 years old, and these are not pieces of equipment that I'm not familiar with. I've never asked anyone to do anything they're not comfortable doing.
I don't think we're out to stop the volunteerism. I think just a little misunderstanding here that needs to get straightened out of what needs to be done and what should be hired done. Anything else, Cindy, that
I'm good.
you're involved with it?
I'm good.
Fred,
Yep, all set.
Jeff? It's really no different than over at the Hartford Brook when volunteers are.
I think, well, last time you were in, the thing that got me was talking about erosion control and stuff like
Yep.
that, and getting Paul Smith in to help. But you need to have a plan, by an engineered plan, because we don't want to get in trouble with DES.
Right.
Yeah, I don't
Anything
feel
like
as though,
that.
I don't think I thoroughly explained, Paul, what we were asking Paul to do. We were just asking him to come and just take a look and give us an idea of where we needed to even start before we went and spent the money on a surveying and engineering plan and all of that. We just wanted to kind of know, are we looking at from the road down? Are we looking at just the beach? Are there other factors involved that we could explore on our own before we put together an engineering plan?
Well,
'Cause
Paul's a
we-
great one for that information, but you just want to make sure you follow through with the
Yeah.
legal side of things for DES.
Yeah, and we are aware of the necessity to do so, proper permitting and such.
Fred?
I went, I went down and took a look on Saturday,
Okay,
and there was one area of erosion, really on the north end, and basically what it looks like, that area accepts the water coming out of that French drain and flows down along the edge there.
Yeah.
And I think that could be taken care of, but there were other areas on the beach itself that it was clearly eroded, but I couldn't tell where the water came from.
right. We can't tell if it's coming through the blocks,
Yeah, that's what I was
underneath the
wondering.
blocks. It's kind of a mystery to us too.
Okay,
And that's something that we wanted to address with the actual engineering project.
because I took, I went and trying to do some research on whether the sand that we have there is not the right sand for a beach. And the only thing I could come up with was that possibly we might have too much in the way of fines
Okay.
in that sand, and which would make it more likely to be subject to erosion. And the only way we could really make that determination would be to run a sieve analysis on it, and I don't know if we want to approach that at this point, but I checked with DES to see if they had any typical specification for sand for beaches,
Yeah,
and unfortunately, they don't.
okay.
So I'm gonna try and do some more additional research to see what I can find out, and when we can get together on that and.
Yeah, I'd like that. And I think the plans for the original erosion control are kicking around somewhere. I'm not sure if they're upstairs.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Andy?
That was one thing that I was going to mention. I think the last time we did serious work on the beach with DES permit in hand, Craig Benson was governor.
Yeah, that was a
Gives
few
you an
years
idea,
ago.
because it was his, the actual director or commissioner of DES came to our meeting. He was a friend of Joe Stone's, and I don't know how much background work actually went into it. We got a permit very quickly with very little input.
That commission-
Prior to that,
That
Kate
commissioner
Hartman done some
got
work.
quite a few permits without necessarily following the proper procedures.
Yeah, I
He grew up
remember,
on Pleasant Lake and didn't see any problem with giving us permit to do what we needed to do to the beach, as I recall.
yeah.
So it's probably time to
Hmm.
take a harder
Yeah, I
look.
think we can do better than what we have. So that's something that we're exploring, that we want to explore. And like I said, I mean, we very much appreciate having someone like yourself, Fred, to guide us and just to figure out where we're actually going with it. Because there's always a lot of options. And we'd like to be able to go to DES and come to the town with what we feel is the most viable, cost-effective, and most effective option, instead of like bouncing back and forth and saying, well, you know, we should probably do this instead and do that. So I feel like having you and people like Paul, you know, just valuable assets for us, that we don't have to call in a specialist and, you know, pay the money up right away to get
Right.
some input. And and I guess that's how VZ Park is, as far as I've always known, that's how VZ Park operates, is, you know, there's so many people in town that are willing and qualified to give input, and we've always done well accepting it and working in that fashion. So I would just like to, whatever we need to do to ensure that we can maintain that course, keep our volunteers and keep our commissioners, because most of the commissioners of VZ Park join for one specific reason. It is a hands-on commission. I've always thought of it more of a department. I mean, we're like, we're in there. We get our hands dirty, and that's why we like it. I could have joined the cemetery commission, but it's not very lively.
Get their hands dirty, believe me.
So you all set, Travis?
Yeah.
You're gonna let the town do the mowing, and you're gonna continue on with your volunteers doing what you do well.
Thank you.
If you have
Yep,
any questions, come to us.
sounds good.
That's what the board feels.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm agreeable to that, yeah.
Thank
I
you.
I appreciate the time, and thank you for your
Thanks
input.
for the write-up.
All right, I can't help it, and I apologize for the typos. I did it real quick, and I feel bad about it because I just went down to the school and complained about spell check down there. So let's hope that doesn't cross over. Thank you again.
Thanks, Travis. Jack, you ready?
Thank you.
Thanks for your work. I'm there. All kinds of skills. Oh, thanks.
Yeah, go, Jack. You got a minute.
So first I want to say, VZ Park, this is really how Deerfield needs to work, and we need to preserve it. And
Right.
getting volunteers who step up and do all that kind of stuff is really wonderful. And everything they do, it builds community in such important ways, way beyond the work that gets done. So what I'm hoping is that you all can have a policy where someone steps up to do work, bringing skills in, and needs material, that it's not about a bid process, it's about finding the material, obviously responsibly, and if people aren't doing that right, then, it can't happen. But the specific instance that comes up is, I'm steadily recruiting volunteers to do stuff, and I found a new person in town with a lot of skill. He's a construction manager for a company that puts up cell towers. And we needed somebody to do the cabinets and counters in the concession area. So he and I met down at Home Depot and spent a couple of hours looking over door slides and hinges and handles and counters and cabinet quality and stuff, and found some stuff and got a price on everything we need for him to put them in. And then we got a message that we needed to get bids, which you can't usefully get bids on something like that, you'd have to go and look at somebody else's material and say, out of your stock, this is what I'd like to get. It's not like buying that slab where I could get bids from everybody, because I could specify a slab, they were gonna put it in, they were gonna set it down. The only work for us was showing them where to put it and having a bed ready. So I hope that it can be okay where, like when I'm building the dugouts, and I've got 2 more to build now, and that worked out great. I got everything but the siding from Jackson Lumber and the siding from Mr. Pittman, and, you know, it worked out well. And if they sent me 2 4x6s that weren't straight, I could just run down there and swap them out for 2 good ones. I hope it can be okay to work like that and not expect volunteers to follow a bid process when they're only buying the materials for the job and donating their labor, which is more than half the value of the job by far. Does that work for you guys?
Yeah, and I think the estimated amount here was well below $3,000 too, and I think it's absolutely right. If you've, obviously, there's going to be exceptions to this, I think, probably based on amount and type of item you're buying. But to my mind, if you're buying materials and hardware to do a volunteer job like this, and no, it makes no sense to get the volunteer, have him spend 2 or 3 hours pricing everything out, and then tell him, go do it a couple more times as best you're able, so we can decide whether you know what you're talking about or
And
not.
before we go somewhere to get stuff, we figure out getting the best deal. It's not, it's not like, there's a lot of judgment that goes into it that doesn't fall to opening bids. And convenience, just being close, so you can, like when I have to return materials, I had to do that a number of times, this isn't good enough, take it back in my truck, get something else. And so, right, so like I said, if like when we did the fencing, we were paying somebody, they were gonna come in and do the fencing, there was no donation in it. I mean, we got an amazing deal because Sean, they had that relationship. But, so we got bids, that's fine, that's easy. Because we can spec the job but you can't spec the job for this and get the right stuff. This is Home Depot's own thing, so. If that's cool, that's what I care about, and I love what
Andy?
Travis is doing.
Yeah, I think if you can just give us a we're not gonna make a black and white policy that bidding procedure is out the window for anything involving volunteer labor, but I think if you can give us just a little heads up, our policy clearly gives us the right to waive, excuse, what have you, our normal bidding procedure.
Yeah.
We do it all the time, lots of times because we only get 1 bid or we get no bids, and I think as long as it's mentioned to the town administrator or us, we can certainly work in that matter. I wouldn't have any problem with that.
No, I would totally keep you in the loop. I mean, I didn't know how much this was gonna cost, really, I had pretty poor sense in this case, but, I can let you know right away when we have it, and we just want to turn it around quick. One of the things that's important in recruiting volunteers and getting work done is get a pace going, is not have people get backed up and have to wait for stuff. The energy's in it, and if they walk away, like, it just came up with, Dave Drapo was setting up the infield for the softball field, and he needed 16 or 18 yards of material, and I was able to have it there in 2 days. It was $300 or something, and I talked to Pete, and we worked it all out, and Steve Rollins did the trucking, just donated the trucking. I just called him up, and he went over to Hooksett and got it. But it was keeping up that pace so I could tell Dave, it's there, it's ready for you, the energy is there, and there's a sense of
It costs him money to move a
boom,
machine
boom,
in and out.
boom. What's that?
It costs him money to move a machine in and out if it's not there, so. it's-
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah. No, that's exactly right. That's
Right,
exactly
that's,
right.
Yeah, it pretty much share Andy's thoughts. The only concern I would end up having is if we're looking at a $10,000 or $20,000 worth of material, I think we would then be looking at going into some type of a bidding procedure.
Of course, Cindy.
Right, it depends on the nature of the work, but if you can specify something, then you can do it, you know what I mean?
Is this Park and Rec's revolving fund or coming?
It's
wasn't
either that or
budgeted.
the grant. It's,
All right, so it
Yeah.
wasn't budgeted, I could go along with
but
them.
keeping people in the loop is no problem. The moment we have a number, I can send it to whoever I should. Do you have any concerns? Is there anything we should check out? We just don't want to then have to go and repeat the process. If this stuff looks good, we're ready to go, we want to be able to sign up pretty quickly and move on it, that's all.
Well, this was $2,529.
Yeah.
I checked a couple of the prices, and it was very competitive.
Yeah, it has to be. It just happened that I walked in with Mac, he goes by, and the manager of the store who was sent to turn it around was a high school buddy of his. And we ran into him. He didn't even know he was there. He knew he worked for Home Depot. So we were getting great service. It was like, we spent 20 minutes talking to him, and then everybody knew who we were.
Yeah, just to follow up on Cindy's, this isn't revolving account. There's a grant and there's a warrant article
Oh, it's
that
on
that
the
it's
warrant.
coming from.
I was just wondering if it was town, I mean, if it wasn't a town, I don't know, budget,
It's not- it's
then we
town tax.
wouldn't be such a big deal to make them do the way we have to do every other department. That's all I'm saying. I don't care where it's coming from. I was just,
And I think, a good
Oh,
thing.
Andrew.
For specific items, you know, like when you mention other departments, if Parks and Rec comes to us and says they want to buy radios or something like that, bad example, but clearly we're going to ask them, get the bids. But
We did the lawnmower.
yeah, I think these are specific instances where we're buying supplies for volunteers who are donating their labor to continue. And in those situations, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me to tell these people, yeah, go get 3
You know,
estimates or
like
more.
two more examples. Chris Colbeth is doing all the irrigation. He bought all the material and sent us a bill for it. We didn't say, get some bids on your material, work with your suppliers, you have relationships,
Right.
get that stuff, and he's doing all the work for nothing. And the same thing was with Ron Labor with all the plumbing, you know, and
Wonderful.
just, we'll pay for the materials, we're good to go.
Thanks for coming in.
All right?
thank you,
One-
Jack.
So,
One quick thing, Jack, you keep mentioning volunteers by names, and I'm not keeping track of them all. I don't know if Parks and Rec is, but we've got some people that have given huge amounts of time
Yeah.
of their equipment, of their material to this project, and at some point, we probably need to
We'd like to
get
recognize them,
a finalized list and recognize these people.
yeah,
including
that's a
you.
really good idea. Well, you recognize me plenty, and it's, makes my days meaningful, so I'm just having fun. But there are some people that really do need to be recognized, like Steve Rollins, like Dave Drapo. And bringing in more people, which is what came up in conversation with some of the people who've been working hard. Where's the next volunteers? Are we always going to have to do this? And that's why I've been recruiting more. That's why I found Mac. And cool.
Thank you.
Let's keep it going with volunteers.
Keep us posted. Thanks,
Good
Jack.
town. Take care.
I think we're almost done with the audience. Mark, did you have something from the last meeting?
Well, I was asked to come back in, so we have answers to what we talked about.
Do you have anything further to add, John? Basically, I'm going to comment on what.
Other than what I've sent you from what I've gotten, that's it.
Yeah, and actually, I talked with Pete for a little bit today, and I think that basically what he showed me was that he has the ability to list these expenses by project. And I know, for example, a couple of weeks ago, there was the Mark Young trucking on the accounts payable. It listed just gravel, had a dollar amount. I'm assuming that we didn't pay Mark Young Trucking for gravel, and Pete was able to show me that he can list gravel and still code it as rental, so that we can see that it was rental of equipment. That way, you'll have the benefit of having that budgeted. It's not as easy as, you know, it could have been if we didn't have the default budget, but you'll have the benefit of having things classified under road reconstruction, under gravel, what have you, and we'll have the benefit of being able to see that it's
Right.
coded as a rental and,
Yep.
be able to see the difference between material and actual equipment.
So when I turn in, like, the bill, like, say, what we're done in the pit right now, piling up gravel with the excavator in the pit, I can still code that to the pit?
My understanding is that Pete has the ability to do this and earmark it as rental, but my understanding of actual accounting is limited to what Pete or John tell me. So I don't know if you've got anything to add to that, John, or correct or clarify?
The whole problem with what we're dealing with right now was when I prepared the operating budget to help mark out in the, for 2018.
Right.
I added a rental line that was new to almost every subcategory he had. So
Right.
that there was a road reconstruction rental line, there was a gravel rental line, which would help you in keeping track of your budget. As it is right now, we have one equipment rental line, which I believe is in road reconstruction.
No, it's
or is
just
it
in the general
highway?
budget.
just
It's in
on its
highway.
own.
It's in the general
And
budget.
right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, the problem with that is the board has asked us to put all of the rental equipment in that one line, which may be, in Mark's mind, being spent out of gravel, road reconstruction, resurfacing, and all these other different departments. So those budgets, sub-budgets, show under expenditure, and that one line shows an over expenditure, which is what is throwing Mark off, trying to keep all of his numbers straight.
But
No,
Pete has said, though, that it can go in that one line, and he can sub-list it by
He cannot make new categories.
Correct, but
He
he can
can,
just
he
put
can
no-
code it
correct.
to the different areas, but
Right.
it'll all still be in the
Which will give
equipment
us a
rental
better
line.
report.
But
because
it's
then
not
we'll-
gonna help Mark out when he's trying to figure out his numbers.
Well, he can if he can read the codes.
Well, so, okay, now you got me told, I know what John's saying, so that still doesn't give me the ability to track my money if we still gotta put it all in the rental line.
Yeah, my understanding is that it can be put, like it was already done a couple of weeks ago. For example, the cost of your equipment was listed as gravel, but there's a subcode or something off to the side that Pete can tag as rental, so we
Yep.
know it wasn't actual material. And my understanding is that would enable you to register things under, the project you're using, and whether it's road construction, gravel, what have you. And if Pete can key by individual billing statement that it's a rental, that'll still give us the ability to see what we've actually spent on outside rental.
Okay,
of
so I
equipment.
can code the way that I wanna code.
I wasn't part of the conversation, but I think what you're saying, there's almost a memo section to each invoice, so that when you were to put the past invoice in for gravel, it would go under gravel, but it would say gravel rental. Is that the way it was described? I don't know what you,
I almost thought that there was more of a subcode that was less visible to non-accounting people.
I'll
like
have to
me.
check with Pete. I'm not that familiar with it. Let me do that and I'll get back to you, Mark.
Okay.
I'll call you tomorrow.
It seemed to me that we were not exactly where we wanted to be, but it would give you the ability to still code stuff.
To be able to track
old
my
road
money, right?
reconstruction, what have you, and we'd still be able to see.
It's
what was
not just,
actual
like I
rental
said, it's
expense.
not just my rental either. It's like, we rent the vibratory roller from ATS, which goes under road reconstruction, you know what I mean? There's a whole
Right.
slew of things. It's not just, like I said, my stuff. And like I said, with the loader last time, that really needs to stay in winter contract, not pulled out into, so that we can offset it with the, with the,
Winter maintenance fund.
yeah,
fund.
exactly, the winter maintenance fund, correct.
Fred?
So at the end of the year, will we be able to look under the rental line and see what money was expended for winter maintenance
Yes,
as rental? But,
that's the idea of it.
yeah,
By
that's,
reading the memos that
right, okay.
codes underneath it. I think we're gonna get a better report. This has brought it out for a better report than
Mhm.
what we would have had.
Right,
Yeah, because Pete said he could put together something that wouldn't take him 10 minutes, and he could
Yeah.
have it all in black and white. And it would make me happy and make you guys happy, so.
As I
Okay.
said, my concern on this is, obviously, I want to be correct accounting-wise, but it's a little bit selfish, too, when someone pulls me over and starts needling me about what we're spending on rental equipment by vendor.
Yeah.
I want to be able to
You know,
quickly and
we
clearly
do-
answer them, and
Right, we do have another option. We can do away with the rental and just go back to subcontract. We just won't get as much done. Just hire subcontractors and forget about the rental. We can do that also. So,
either way, I want to keep track of it in the same way.
right, yeah.
Anybody else? Review of outstanding minutes, May 14th.
I would move the minutes of May 14th as presented.
Second.
Second by Jeff. Any updates?
No comments.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Payroll manifests in the amount of $57,027.21, netting out at $44,626.66.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Fred, motion by Andy, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Accounts payable manifest of $31,305.86.
So moved.
Moved by Fred,
Second.
second by Jeff, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This is the only one without a paper. We have an intent to cut by Mark and Pamela Lamontagne of Haynes Road. Just a sign. Is all of these, John?
No.
I've never seen it where it's, there are 4 different names.
No, neither have I. They're all contiguous to each other, so maybe that's why.
Well, we'll run with the, timber tax levy in the amount of $1,951.07 involving Alan Cohen, Al Jager Trust, Shirley Hutchins, and Alan Kathy Shigo.
I'd make a motion that we collect our timber tax.
Second.
Second by Fred, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Did you want to break down?
This is there right here, that was just a summary. So we'll just, want one vote for all of them since we did it, or
Yeah, we already,
covered?
we voted to cover it as long as,
So we'll just sign and go?
yeah, as long as the amounts match. I've never seen a summary. Yeah, it's right, is there a 186.15 on there? Yep, this first one.
We have a Parks and Rec Commission for the term expiring April 30th, 2019, for Jeff D. Agustin.
Can I make a motion, we appoint Jeff to the Parks and Rec Commission?
Second?
Second by Andy, all in favor?
Aye.
Just to note, this is to fill out a term, there is still one opening that people are able to apply for as well.
Town administrators report.
I have one item, which is a request to the town from Carolyn O'Neill as a representative from the DCS PTO. They're requesting use of the gazebo park area on Friday, August 10th for a movie in the park event. And they would also be looking to use the bottom floor of the town hall. But for the most part, I'm bringing this to the board's attention for the use of the gazebo park. She's also been in touch with Nick Lawrence to dovetail into their family fun night evening. Should they both occur at the same time, the concert or event from Parks and Rec would take place first, and then the movie would take place after.
Is that the beginning of our annual weekend there? What's it called?
Old Home Day?
Old Home Day?
No, this is August 10th. I think it's before.
Week before,
Yeah.
okay.
As long as Ray and Nick are good with it in their schedule.
Fine.
Just wanted to bring it to your attention. That was it.
Anything else for the town administrator? Let's move down to unfinished or new business. Fred, oh yeah, well, Fred's got new business.
Finally able to get the printing of the pictures that I had taken with regard to the Epsom Deerfield Town Bound. And I have one picture which shows the stone with the chiseled in E and D with a line down the middle. And that was the stone that had mysteriously moved. And we ended up setting the stone bound with this chiseled stone with the line separating E and D to be actually on the town line and going off to the east.
We'll put those on file with the
Sure.
office. You all set with that, Fred?
Yep.
Thank you for all you did. Anybody else for the town administrator? We have next on the agenda the remaining COLA wage increases that didn't get dealt with earlier on in previous administration. Excuse me. Which would be part-timers that were in the Parks and Rec, Highway Department full-timers, and Police Department full-timers. Andy?
Yeah, these were specific people that, my recollection is we pulled out because we had given them, they were either new hires or we'd given them some other wage adjustment, incremental wage adjustment. And it got presented to the Budget Committee in that fashion. I think we were advised by a couple of different entities that we shouldn't pick and choose employees to give COLAs to, and that you make wage adjustments for the purpose of bringing wages into the appropriate scale, and it doesn't do you any good if you make wage adjustments and then defer those people from
Right.
your cost of living adjustments. So I believe the Department of Revenue was one of the entities that told us that this was not an appropriate way to,
We need to get them,
we need to bring them up with everybody else and
Right.
apply the same
go
COLA to them.
back to January 1st and
Do you have a dollar amount, John, for the?
Yes, it's on the cover sheet. There's the approximate increase from COLA to FICA and also the additional wages.
All inclusive, it's a little over 11 grand that we need to find in the budget.
That's correct.
Somebody needs to make that motion.
I'll make a
We'll
motion so we can
it.
discuss it. Yeah, I'll make a motion that we attempt to come up with $11,472.21 for the correction of people that were left out of the COLA that we gave the employee base this past year.
Second.
Second by Fred. Any discussion?
Does this include,
Those are the part-timers, those are the full-times that we left out.
right, does this include Parks and Rec people?
Yes, the people up at the top are all the remaining part-timers that were not included in the fall COLA. And they're the full-time people, which were new hires at the time, and that board had decided because they were newly hired, they were not included in the original COLA. Those are at the bottom, in the bottom
Right,
grouping.
but, so the Parks and Rec wouldn't be included in the money we have to raise, because they're all paid out of the revolving account.
That would all come out of the revolving fund, that's correct.
So is this grand total of 10?
That's the combination of both, so you'd have to reduce it by the top amount.
Top amount.
Yep.
Right.
So can you put that, amend the motion so that,
Well, I think we have, I think to expend it, we have to use the gross amount.
Okay.
Would be my
we
recollection.
won't have to find as much.
We won't have to find as much, but I think we have to make a motion on it.
The amount coming out of the actual operate, or the
Okay.
default budget would be less than the 11,000.
Right.
Jeff is correct.
What's the difference in value?
Can we,
The Parks and Rec group's about $1,000.
Oh, okay, so
So,
10,000 we'd have to find.
yeah, roughly.
I just realized that there's only to be signed by the chairman, so that motion will have to,
I would edit my motion to authorize the chairman to sign the personnel action requests.
And the second agrees with the amendment.
you all set, Cindy?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I'll sign them afterwards, so we don't, then numerous.
That's the best action you've taken as chair.
Andy, would you speak on a tax deed for Estrella? Is that how it's pronounced?
Oh, sure.
So we can do that one tonight.
We've got a recommendation from the tax collector to deed properties. And in her review, she came up with the 33 parcels. She's recommending that we take action with regard to 3 parcels. And I'm going to read the lot numbers and the acreage as opposed to the actual names of people here. But these are all map 418. It's lot 62, which is 76 acres on Reservation Road. It's lot 25, which is 23 acres on Reservation Road. And it's lot 26, which is 5.7 acres, and that's a landlocked parcel, sort of between Tom Welch's land and Nancy Mathis's land, as I recall, off of Reservation Road as well, but a ways off. And I don't, one of the reasons I had talked to Dick a little bit beforehand, these parcels are contiguous to large undeveloped parcels presently, and I believe in our warrant article about disposal of property, we have the option to run potential deeded property by the Conservation Commission. And I think that might be a good, if we're gonna take the action, we need to take the action irregardless, but I wanted to get a plug in there that because of the location of these properties, because of the ponds and wetlands on them as well, that I think it's important to let the Conservation Commission take a look at particularly the bigger 2 parcels
Yeah.
before we decide that we wanna auction them to the highest bidder and be done with them.
I would agree.
Would tonight be getting the
I,
deed from them to the town?
I am comfortable making a motion that we follow the tax collector's recommendation and deed those 3 parcels 418 Lot 62, 418 Lot 25, and 418 Lot 26.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Fred. Continue to discuss. Anything, Jeff, or anybody? Andy?
I would mention that there's been no action with regard to back taxes on these property for years, and I believe, my understanding is that the owner is deceased.
I read his obituary in that file.
It has been for some time.
All in favor of this motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Unanimous, thank you.
And I can contact Sarita and let her know of our action, not that anything's final yet, but just so they could take a look at it and tell us whether they have an interest or not.
Okay.
Just want to make note that the taxes on these three parcels go, unpaid taxes go back to 2009. So,
Thank you, Fred. Any other business? Cindy?
I have a couple questions. The encumbered money, has that been straightened out yet?
Yes, that is in the budget. Well, it's in as a budget adjustment, but it is listed now.
Can it be used as?
Yes, it can.
Okay. The other question was, I think we need to start trying to figure out what we're throwing at the highway department as far as, go to VZ Park and do this and go, I don't know if there's any policies on that either, but Mark's got his crews doing things and he's running out of time to do them because he's done I just didn't know if there was I wanted to bring that up.
Andy?
Yeah, I can speak just from my past experience. There isn't a specific policy. Typically, the road agent has either advised us that he can help with something, and we've gladly taken him up on it, or we've asked the road agent for things like VZ Park cleanup when we've needed heavy equipment. We've asked the road agent if he's able to do that, and I think it's been pretty much left up to the road agent either being agreeable
Right.
or saying no.
Well, he was just,
Can't do it.
somebody was told to consult with him, and they called and said, hey, the town administrator said, for you to come down and do this, and he was like, oh. So I just wanted to see about that.
I think it's a good point. We don't want to overstress. They do have road work to do. It was nice that they volunteered out here to clean up what our insurance company needed along the fence with the trees and the holes and the rocks, but they ought to be asked if they have time, not just told to do it, unless it's an emergency. Anything else, Cindy?
That's it.
Fred?
there's a couple of things I forgot to ask for John. Have we gotten the results back from the water sample I had taken down at from the town well, at the, for the town hall?
Would the results have come back from the state?
Yeah,
No, not to my knowledge. We've gotten one water sample that we had asked out at the front as part of emergency management to determine the potability of the water.
yeah.
But as far as the test that you conducted, no, I've not seen anything.
I'll have to see if I can check and find out what the story on that. The other thing is on the police department building committee, have you had any responses to that?
I have. I've gotten,
Going to be on my last thing
Oh.
here also.
Sorry to steal your thunder.
No, I just wanted on TV again that we're still looking for volunteers, and we haven't quite got the 7 yet, so
Mhm.
we'd like more than that so we can pick the qualified ones.
Yep.
But yes, we have had a few.
Good.
Anybody else, Jeff?
Yeah, just to follow up from our last meeting, you asked me to look at there's some bids for the roof replacement at the highway garage.
Yes.
And I understand that we don't have the funding for it per se. We'd have to find the money for it because of the default budget. But I did look into, I would recommend that we go with A.W. Therian Company for a price of $28,156. And what it's doing basically is putting a new rubber roof over the metal roof that's on the shed now. But I had talked to Ray, and he went up and looked at the metal because I was concerned that it wouldn't be stable enough to put a roof over, and he went up it and said, yeah, it's fine, it's in good shape. so
Structurally, I think it's okay, it just leaks.
It leaks, yeah. So what this does is fill in the ribs and then puts a new roof over the metal. There's
Say that number again, Jeff?
$28,156. The other bid we had was for $31,683. There's two alternates too, and one is snow guard system, which I would not recommend. And the other is a new gutter, which probably should be done. So if we go ahead with this, we can look at adding, the gutter is between $2,000 and $3,000 to add that in.
Which we could do it, was that something they do, or is that a different company?
They would do it.
They do the gutter?
Yep.
Is that a motion to look for the funds?
I'm not sure how we want to do it.
Do we find the funds?
My suggestion to the board would to consider the building reserve fund that the board puts away a small amount every year in the budget. I'd have to double check on the balance of that right now and be able to get back to you.
Okay.
So maybe at the
Make a
next
motion
meeting?
next meeting.
Yeah, let's do it right. Any other select citizens' comments? Mrs. Katie?
I have 4 things that you've discussed tonight that concern me. One is Jack and Travis's talk about, well, Jack especially, about getting bids. The town's policy for bids is $10,000. I don't know if the selectmen have adopted something else when I heard Jack say 2,500 approximately. Why he would have been called and asked had he got a bid. So I think you need to go over your policies on spending in the town. I think Cindy had an idea that some things should be done, but I really believe you need to understand your policy more and maybe have the policy book with you so you can look that up. I am concerned that the tax deeded property, when you say the owner died and no taxes have been paid, have there been heirs notified? Because there's some real strong laws in regards to that. In other words, a tax bill having been sent to the owners. And if no tax bills were ever sent to owners, hasn't been looked up, I think we would have a big problem under the law. And so back to bids, I would like to see us have a policy that said bids will be, if you're going to have it, $10,000, but at RFPs will be done if it's over 2,500, and exemptions that might be made for RFPs. Then the COLA that you're talking about, I don't know when you got the information that it wouldn't be correct to do it. But I'd like to know if it's based on legality or it's simply based on it wouldn't be correct. Because in the Neil Kirk versus Town of Ware, the court case said you cannot spend money that was not discussed at the town meeting for these things. So I'd like to have some clarification. If you're going to give raises during the year, COLAs, whatever, that you follow the court decision and they not be given if they weren't discussed at town meeting. In other words, the citizens have a right to know when you're spending their money. And that's what the court has consistently made clear. Then my final point is, and I talked with the police chief today because somebody who doesn't believe in freedom of speech or First Amendment rights drove into the 2 Northern Pass signs, one on Gloria's land and the other on Steve Rollins. Both of those signs are under my name. By law, I got the permission from the landowners to put the signs there, including one at Briggs Field last year. The one at Briggs Field disappeared. Now somebody has driven into those two signs, and the one at Steve's looks to be hanging by a thread. They're quite costly. Having a person come out and put them in and fix them. And I just want to know that people understand property rights extend to signs. And if anybody is found to destroy those, they can be taken to court and fined, plus having to pay for the replacement of them. I mainly bring it to your attention tonight because I want the word out in the community that we have a right to have signs under free speech, and that is a free speech issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
So moved.
Need a vote on that?
You don't have to.